Okay, so we are looking at a single date on the calendar today, February 9th.
Right.
But looking through the sources you've pulled, it's pretty clear we are not doing a standard on this day trivia session.
No, not at all. This isn't about, random events that just happen to share a square on the calendar.
It's much more cohesive than that.
It is. When you lay the source material out chronologically, you've got historical records, literary biographies, even NASA mission logs. February 9 functions almost like a core sample of the 20th century.
A core sample. I like that. It's a trajectory.
Exactly.
We're looking at a very specific narrative arc that spans, roughly 90 years.
Just about.
It starts with the death of a literary giant in 1906. Then it pivots to the birth of a revolutionary feminist voice in 1944.
And it lands?
And it lands, quite literally, in the vacuum of space in 1995.
And the sources refer to this as the unbroken chain. It's a fascinating way to frame history. Well, it's not as a series of disconnected battles, but more like a relay race where the baton keeps getting passed into wider and wider spaces.
Okay, so the mission for this deep dive is to trace that chain. We're exploring how Black imagination and presence evolved from, say, fighting to be heard on a printed page to piloting humanity's most advanced technology.
That's the arc.
So I want to start right at the beginning of that timeline. February 9th, 1906, Dayton, Ohio.
The death of Paul Laurence Dunbar.
And reading through the biographical notes, the tragedy isn't just that he died, but when he died. He was only 33 years old.
Just 33.
And I was looking at the medical context in the stack here, and the cause of death was phthisis pulmonalis.
Yeah, which is the old school term for tuberculosis.
Right.
And that was a scourge at the turn of the century, especially in African American communities where medical access was often restricted or just substandard.
So TB was this slow-consuming killer.
It was. And for Dunbar to have produced the volume of work he did, we're talking novels, plays, lyrics, essays, while he was literally suffocating. It's a testament to a frantic kind of genius.
He knew he was running out of time.
He had to.
And yet, by 33, he was arguably the first Black writer in America to really crack that mainstream ceiling. He had national acclaim.
He did. But reading his work now, there's this palpable tension that the sources really highlight.
The two styles.
Exactly. He's famous for his dialect poetry writing in the vernacular of Black Americans of that era, but he also wrote in perfect high-standard English.
That tension is just central to his legacy, isn't it?
It is. You have to remember the context of 1906.
Yeah.
This is the nadir of race relations. Jim Crow is codified.
And the popular culture representation of Black people was.
It was largely limited to minstrelsy and caricature. So when Dunbar writes in dialect, he's walking a razor's edge.
Right, because on one hand, he's validating the voice of his people, the way his parents, who were enslaved, actually spoke. But on the other hand, he knows that white audiences might be consuming it as comedy or some kind of folk quaintness instead of serious literature.
Exactly. And he hated that pigeonholing. He wanted to be known for his mastery of the English language in all its forms, not just the jingles, as he sometimes bitterly called them.
But even so, by putting that dialect into hardcover books, he was doing something incredibly subversive.
He was smuggling Black humanity into libraries that otherwise would have excluded it.
And then there's that famous line from his poem, "We Wear the Mask," which I think is one of the most haunting things ever written.
We wear the mask that grins and lies.
It hides our cheeks and shades our eyes.
It's the definitive statement on the double consciousness of that era. You present one face to the white world to survive, to be safe, to be employable, and you keep your true self hidden.
So Dunbar dies on February 9th, 1906, essentially exhausted from wearing that mask.
Yes.
So he clears the brush. He proves that a Black writer can sell books, can command a national audience, even if he feels trapped by the expectations of that audience. He dies on February 9. Now, we moved down the timeline. The chain doesn't break, but it goes quiet for a moment.
And we jump 38 years forward.
To February 9th, 1944.
And the setting shifts drastically.
We go from the urban setting of Dayton, Ohio, to the rural red clay country of Eatonton, Georgia, the Deep South.
And on this day, Alice Walker is born.
The symmetry is just striking. You have the death of the father of Black poetic voice, and then 38 years later to the day, the birth of the woman who would essentially kick the door down for Black women's literature.
And she's the 8th child of sharecroppers.
Which is so important.
That sharecropping background is vital. Dunbar's parents were enslaved. Walker's parents were sharecroppers. The economic shackles had loosened slightly, but the system was still designed to keep them on that land, working for someone else.
With very little room for art.
Very little.
Yet she becomes Alice Walker. She writes The Color Purple, she wins the Pulitzer, wins the National Book Award. But I want to double-click on something the sources emphasize. Her specific contribution to feminist theory. She didn't just join the feminist movement, she critiqued it.
She did. She felt the feminism of the 70s was too white, too middle class.
Right. It ignored the specific intersection of race and class that Black women navigated.
So she coined a new term, womanist.
Womanist is to feminist as purple is to lavender. That's the famous quote.
It is. And the definition of womanism isn't just Black feminism. It's actually broader. It emphasizes a commitment to the survival and wholeness of entire people, men and women.
Okay.
It honors the domestic, the spiritual, the emotional depth of women like her mother, who planted these beautiful gardens even when they lived in shacks they didn't own.
So if Dunbar's role was to say, we are here and we can write, Walker's role seems to be, we are here and our interior lives are complex, spiritual, and worthy of high art.
That's the shift. Dunbar often had to look outward. How is the white world perceiving me? Walker looked inward.
The Color Purple is a great example. It's an epistolary novel.
It's letters to God. It's the ultimate interior monologue. She stopped wearing the mask Dunbar wrote about and showed the scars underneath.
And she took a lot of heat for that, didn't she? The sources mentioned the backlash.
Oh, yes.
Particularly from some Black male critics who felt she was airing dirty laundry about domestic abuse within the community.
She did. Just as Dunbar faced criticism for his dialect poetry, Walker faced criticism for her raw honesty. But that's the burden of the pioneer.
She expanded the territory.
She claimed the inner space of Black women.
Okay, so we've established this progression. 1906, Dunbar claims the page. 1944, Walker claims the soul, the interior life.
Right.
Now we make the biggest leap in the timeline. We go from the interior space of Georgia to the literal vacuum of outer space.
February 9, 1995.
51 years after Alice Walker's born, we are looking at the Space Shuttle Discovery, mission STS-63.
This is a pivotal moment in space history, even aside from our main focus today.
The Near-Mir mission.
The Near-Mir mission, yeah. It was the first time a U.S. shuttle rendezvoused with the Russian space station Mir, a massive geopolitical thaw after the Cold War.
And on board is Bernard Harris, Jr. He's a physician, a flight surgeon, and a payload commander. And on this date, he suits up for an EVA.
An extravehicular activity.
Which is a very sterile way of saying he is about to step out of a pressurized tin can into a void that is effectively absolute zero.
It's terrifying when you think about it.
And the sources go into detail about this specific EVA. It wasn't just a walk. They were testing thermal modifications to the spacesuits.
Right, because during this phase of the orbit, the shuttle was in deep shadow. It was incredibly cold, even by space standards.
So they were testing how the suits handled temperatures dropping to, what was it, minus 100 degrees Fahrenheit.
While they were physically manipulating heavy equipment, Harris later described the cold seeping through his gloves, this physical biting chill of the vacuum.
And when he stepped out, he became the first African American to perform a spacewalk. I just want to pause on that image for a second. We've gone from Dunbar dying of a lung disease in a segregated city to Walker being born in a sharecropper's shack to Harris floating freely above the entire planet.
It's the overview effect realized. When you are on an EVA, you aren't looking at borders. You aren't looking at Jim Crow laws or sharecropping plots. You are looking at the blue marble.
It represents a total liberation from the physical constraints that define the lives of Dunbar and Walker.
It does.
It's also fascinating that Harris is a doctor.
Right.
Dunbar died because medical science, or at least access to it, failed him. Harris is a master of medical science, using it to survive in an environment that should kill him instantly.
That is a profound inversion, and it signals a change in the narrative of Black history in America. For so long, the story was about survival despite the system. With Harris, the story is about leading the advancement of the system. He isn't asking for a seat at the lunch counter. He is piloting the most complex machine humanity has ever built.
And the unbroken chain concept really clicks when you view it this way.
It does.
Harris admitted in interviews, some of which are in our source stack, that he stood on the shoulders of the civil rights generation. He doesn't get into the astronaut corps without the social restructuring that Alice Walker and her peers fought for.
And Walker doesn't get to be a celebrated author without Dunbar proving that Black art had commercial and intellectual value.
Right.
It's a direct lineage.
It's a platform.
Each generation created a platform that was slightly higher and slightly wider than the one before it.
I think it's interesting to look at the spaces they occupied. Dunbar occupied the mask, a tight, constricted psychological space. Walker occupied the garden, her metaphor for the creative spirit of Black women.
And Harris occupied low Earth orbit.
The aperture just keeps opening.
And notice the agency involved. Dunbar was fighting for recognition. Walker was fighting for definition. Harris was exercising exploration. Those are very different states of being.
So let's bring this all back together for you, the listener. We have 3 points on a line.
Right.
1906. Paul Laurence Dunbar dies. The end of the first great struggle for a literary voice.
Then, 1944, Alice Walker is born. The rise of a specific womanist consciousness.
And finally, 1995. Bernard Harris walks in space. The physical transcendence of earthly boundaries.
And all anchored to February 9. It serves as a perfect yardstick. If you want to know how much changed in the 20th century, you just have to look at what a Black person was doing on February 9th at the beginning, middle, and end of the century.
It moves from, I hope they let me publish this, to I am conducting thermal experiments in a vacuum.
That is a velocity of progress that is hard to wrap your head around.
It is.
And it suggests that the work isn't done, but the nature of the work changes. It shifts from fighting for survival to fighting for the right to imagine the future. Harris represents that shift to futurism.
Which brings me to the question I've been mulling over since I read through this outline. We've seen the baton pass from 1906 to 1944 to 1995. The gaps are roughly 40 to 50 years.
We are about due for the next anchor point.
We are. So if the trajectory is expansion, if we are constantly moving into new territories of imagination and physical reality, what does the next February 9 look like?
That's the big question. If Harris took us to orbit, the next frontier might not be physical space.
What then? Digital space.
It might be digital space or cognitive space.
Or maybe it's a synthesis of all of them. But I think about the young person born on February 9, say in 2024 or 2025. What barriers will they be breaking in 2050?
If the pattern holds, they won't just be breaking a barrier, they'll be redefining what it means to be human.
Wow.
Dunbar redefined Blackness for America. Walker redefined womanhood for the world. Harris redefined our relationship to the planet. The next link in the chain will likely redefine intelligence or biology itself.
From the pen to the stars, and then wherever comes next. It's a lot to think about next time you look at your calendar.
History is always happening, even on the quiet days.
Absolutely. Thanks for unpacking this with me. It's a powerful reminder that we're all part of a much longer story.
Indeed.
We'll see you on the next Deep Dive.